I like books that have magic in them. So today we're going to talk about a book that is magical called A Harvest of Hearts by Andrea Eames. This story is about this girl named Foss Butcher, and she works in this village kind of on the outskirts of this kingdom. All of her life in the kingdom, there have been these sorceresses that would come to town and they would take slivers or pieces of people's hearts and they would use this heart magic to sustain the land and prevent war and to make sure that the townsfolk didn't lose their babies and all of this stuff. Or at least they were told this. They were told this is what this is all used for. These sorceresses were so absolutely beautiful. Like, people became like bumbling idiots in their presences and just they wanted to follow them around. And basically were kind of like caught up in this whole spell of them and whatnot. And that's how the sorceresses would just, take them and be able to take a sliver of their hearts. And very rarely did they take a whole heart. However, it seems as time is progressing, these magical workers are needing to take more and more pieces and hearts. And so one day there's a sorcerer that comes to the village, and like the villagers didn't even know that sorcerers existed because before it was all just the women who would come. But now there's been a male sorcerer, and he comes and he goes to like one of the little shops and buys some herbs and stuff. And right before he goes to leave, he locks eyes with Foss, the butcher girl. And Foss has always kind of been like, she has a very plain countenance, no one really notices her. She has carroty red hair that kind of sticks out everywhere. And so when the sorcerer locks eyes with her and takes a piece of her heart or snags her, she kind of becomes enthralled by him. And she doesn't understand why he would choose her because she's always, considered herself plain Jane and kind of has bad self-esteem. When he takes this piece of her heart, she's insanely angry. She's also caught in this spell of him. So she has to leave her village. Well, she doesn't have to, but it's like ripping her apart, like just this pain from being apart from the sorcerer. So she travels to find him after he leaves, and she goes to his house, which is this like weird, shiny black house. She goes, the door opens, and there's this cat there that kind of like greets her, and then they walk through the house. And it took her quite the journey to get there. She had to hitch a ride with some guy on his cart, and they travel around to a bunch of towns and stuff. And there was one town that they came to that was even more on the outskirts than the town that Foss was from. And there was a real bad vibe to that town. Like, stuff was weird. And they didn't stay in that town overnight because the guy she was traveling with was like, no, no, we don't stay here overnight. You know, bad stuff is afoot or something like that. And so anyways, so she gets to the sorcerer's house and she goes in and she finds the sorcerer, and he's sitting in this room on this like throne that's made of this same kind of like weird material that the house is made of. And he's just sitting there, and there's just like plates of old food everywhere on the floor. I'm like, oh, gross. He's a disgusting pig. Awesome. He's like, hi, what? What do you want? And she's like, I'm here to be your new housekeeper, is what she like blurts out. And he's like, all right. He's like, the cat'll show you where you need to go and what you need. And she's like, okay. And she doesn't tell him that he like took part of her heart. She doesn't say this right away. So she's like, all right. So what she's going to do is when he's not there, maybe try to like search around the house and see if she can find out where he stores the hearts and all of this stuff. She goes into the kitchen and she's following the cat. She's like, man, I wish you could talk. And the cat starts talking. It seems like whenever she needs something, like truly needs something, the house provides it. She was like, oh, why didn't you talk to me when I first got here? And the cat's like, well, I couldn't just up until now because apparently you needed to be able to talk to me. And so now you have a talking cat. And she's like, well, what should I call you? And the cat's like, well, I've always kind of been partial to Cornelius. And she's like, all right, Cornelius it is. Foss starts like becoming the housekeeper for the sorcerer. And then, yeah, in the meantime, she's also kind of like digging around in the different rooms, trying to see like where he might possibly keep the hearts. But the house is always like moving and changing because the house seems like it's part of the sorcerer. And the cat tells her that the house kind of like grew up around him. So it's part of him. So like some rooms will reveal themselves when needed. And like when she needs stuff in the kitchen and is like, oh, I need this. And it just appears in the kitchen. But you have to truly need it. You can't just be like, I need $5 million or I need my heart back. Because then that'd be a pretty boring book if she was just like, I need my heart. And the house was like, bloop, There you go. I mean, but how's she supposed to put it back in anyway? Maybe there's some magical procedure. Eventually, as these two kind of get to know each other, Sylvester is the name of the sorcerer, and he is the only male sorcerer. And it seems like what Foss gathers and finds out is that these sorceresses and sorcerer were children of the king. But the king, like, made them. He took them as children, like they're either street urchins or whatever, and then turned them into these magical creatures who are the sorceresses and sorcerers. But it seems like the king is not up to anything good. Like, he tells all the villages and everyone that this is all for them, protecting the kingdom, this, that, and the other, do. But it's all for, like, much more evil purposes, dun dun dun, as it always is. But Sylvester doesn't really want to harvest hearts from people. He didn't even know that he had snagged Foss until eventually she tells him, and this kind of like opens up his eyes to like what it's doing to her as she slowly like starts to tell him, a bit about like where she came from, this, that, and the other. As you progress into the story, it turns out that there's a bunch of these other people that live in the city where like the sorceresses and the sorcerer are that have also been snagged that Foss meets, and she meets this guy Basil, and he invites her to this meeting of these people who have been snagged. As she goes to these meetings, she also finds that like apparently there's this like weird green mold when people's hearts are taken that starts spreading inside them and contaminating the hearts. And this is a problem too for the king and his sorceresses because it's destroying all the hearts that they have stored. So now they're harvesting more and more to try to like fix the problem. But this is just going to make things worse. Some of the sorceresses are like, well, we always said we wouldn't take from the villages closest to us, but now we are. And the king's just like, who cares? Just go to the utmost villages first, harvest all of those. So they're going to just go and start like decimating these villages and killing all these people because the king doesn't give an F. He is selfish and evil and vindictive and just a horrible POS. But eventually, Sylvester decides like he doesn't want to follow this life. He doesn't want to use the hearts for this and whatnot. And he kind of teams up with Foss and they decide that they want to try to stop him. And they also want to see if there's a way to repair these people's hearts. I really love the way this was written. The first sentence had the word shite in it, and I always found shite to be like a funny swear word. So I was like, oh, that's very charmed by like from the first sentence. And it's sweet, it's cute, it's emotional, it's a lovely magical book. You have just quirky characters. I loved the talking cat, Cornelius, because of course I love cat characters. I love animal creatures in books, especially if they can talk, even better. It was just a really fun and sweet and cute and dark and weird magical fantasy book. I have never read this author before. I really enjoyed the writing. It made me sad sometimes, like how Foss viewed herself. Because Foss really has like this view that she's like this horribly ugly, gross person. Because of course, like when she was younger, the village boys who are like these gross dirt balls, she wasn't even attracted to a very handsome one. She tried to like go on maybe like what you would call a date with this one boy, but then he ended up being a total a-hole. So she has really bad self-esteem and doesn't think highly of herself and all, and it really made me kind of sad about the fact that that's how she viewed herself. But towards the end of the book, she gets a uplifting in this as she is seen through other eyes and is able to see herself in a better light, and that's what makes it kind of sweet and emotional. Will her heart be saved? Will they be able to save the frickin' kingdoms? Will they be able to stop this toad butthole king? He sucks. Anyway, if you like magical fantasies that are kind of quirky and cute and have talking animals, then A Harvest of Hearts by Andrea Eames might just be for you. And if you enjoyed hanging out today, hit that subscribe button, come back, see me again, and we'll talk about more bookish things and weird stuff.